taxpayers is dying, and my people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Watch what comes out your mouth. People are suffering.
Not just sex trafficking, right? Human trafficking equates to slavery. Right? People say modern day slavery is slavery. The average person that is trafficked is 14 years old. But they traffic children as young as 8 years old. Probably younger, but that's what's documented. About 90% of children that are trafficked or youth that are trafficked are women or girls. When I say this, and people say, well, child sex trafficking, that's part of it. But also, a lot of these hair braiding shops, they have girls working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they aren't paid a dime. They're slaves. They brought them over from particularly Ghana and the Ivory Coast. And those are the main, and Togo. Those are the main places where they bring them in to braid the hair, and those people are enslaved. It has nothing to do with sex trafficking. That's human trafficking. And they work them in restaurants, different places. But of course, sex trafficking is most insidious. When you have youth that are sitting in here, most of them could be trafficked, particularly since the #1 human trafficking place in the world is Atlanta.
Mercy.
I was looking it up. I thought it was just the United States. It's the world. This is the #1 place for human trafficking in the world. So we have to watch our babies. There are certain things we're going to give you to keep them protected should someone try to abduct them. But in my opinion, and I'll pass it to my brother, I just want to say this and then I'll go deep into it. It starts with us as parents telling our children the biggest lie that we could ever tell them, and it confuses them and sets them up for abduction.
Basically what Bobby was talking about, I see faces when he said #1 in the world. You got to realize that the airport, we have the busiest airport in the world.
The national city.
Right. It's an international city. You have conventions, the Greyhound bus. It's one of the easiest places because of the fact that, you know, you have white businessmen in particular who can fly on into Atlanta, hop off the flight, get them a little girl, and fly on out before time's up. There's a lot of child prostitution, forced to trafficking. There's a lot of new age pimping, as they would say. You know what I'm saying? You have a lot of young male prostitution, a lot of boys being turned out of school. A lot of young boys we found are being raped inside the public schools by their peers.
And the school doesn't say anything.
Either a lot of times the school knows, and a lot of times the schools don't know, because of the fact that the children are too afraid to say anything. And that ties in with the bullying aspect, you know. So we have to really monitor our youth. So yeah, so it's a real serious sex trafficking around here. A lot of branding, a lot of pimping, modeling. You've seen a lot of times, a lot of parents. You know, you want your daughter to be a model and all this type of stuff, and you go and pay to get them involved in these different agencies, and next thing you know, they're doing some things that you didn't know they were doing, and you find out some years later.
And these MMORPG games, these MMO means some mass media, whatever it is, where you can link on with a bunch of people to play games. That's how they do it too. My son was playing a game. He's 14 now. He was 12 or 11. I think he was 11 when this happened. He's playing a game, and then they can communicate in the game. So you communicate. He's giggling. I said, what's so funny, son? This girl on here, she's digging me. She liking me. And I said, she liking you online? She doesn't know you. How can she like you? Well, she likes you. She's saying, she's there with her boyfriend, but he's asleep. I said, okay. And she said, she asking me, what am I wearing, man? She thought she wanted to know what kind of clothes. I said, she didn't ask what you wearing. So let me see this. So I'm reading this crazy. I'm here with my boyfriend. He won't do nothing with me. If you were here, you would, and all of this kind of stuff. Right? And I'm being careful what I say because it's really young. I said, son, this first of all, the way it's talking, that's a man. Number one, it's not a girl. I said, women don't usually describe their bodies graphically the way this person's describing. That's a man, number one. I said, and they don't like you. They'll come and capture you or something, meet you somewhere, and we never see you again. He said, oh man, for real? I said, yeah. I said, let me get you right. I'm you now. By the time I got done, they were, who is this? They could tell it's a different voice. I said, this is his father, chump. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I said, why are you pretending to be a woman? Oh, I never said I was a woman. I never said I was a woman. I got a boyfriend.
That's deep.
I said, son, oh man. Yeah, oh man. Don't get on here no more talking to these folks. See, because we think it's just, they playing a game with us, and then this friendly conversation, this game becomes something else. The next thing you know, we're looking for our child and they disappear.
They tried that with a little girl with her father about 2 weeks ago, and he fought whoever it was hand to hand to get his daughter away from them. Wow.
And see, this is why our children and us as parents, we have to train to be prepared to deal with any situation like that.
And back to the whole message of you have to know who your children's friends are. And you have to be the bad guy sometimes and not let them be friends with them friends. Because they will run your child in the wrong direction and you'll never be able to get them back. Or something will happen to them that you can never take away. You can never get their chastity back because they're rolling with these hot chicks.
One of the things they do with recruiting is through the schools. And they look for girls who are unloved, unwanted, picked on, you know what I mean? And they use decoys. They use other girls to befriend them. And before long, these girls will lure them to the sex trafficking. Understand what I'm saying? And that's one of the ways they bring them into that particular field. And what happens is you have men, grown men, and for the record, to piggyback off what you said in regards to the whole, it is, I get a feeling of violence inside of me when I think about this. Because to me, for any child to be violated, that's one thing. But for a man to violate a baby, a little girl, to take advantage of her mentally and physically, that is to me, I don't understand anything short of death. I know there's sick people, you know what I mean? But I believe in righteous removal. I think that some people don't deserve to be around to harm children. You know what I mean? And I've heard some people say, well, that's not the way. Some people need help. Well, I got a solution for that.
It really is a help. The African believes you have a damaged head, so you send him home so he gets a new head. He comes back better, so it's okay.
But piggyback on what Ebony was saying about watching your children, a lot of the society is geared towards pumping up children to look like they're grown. Whether it's the dress, the mannerism, the activities they participate in. So if they are a mini version of an adult, because back in the day, there were clothing that you could tell were for little girls, clothing for teens, clothing for, adults, and you could sort of distinguish based on the clothing. But now, if everybody has on jeans and sweats and tennis shoes, then it becomes a common denominator. But the point is, if you're especially your girls, if you're letting them dress up so that they look like they're older than they really are, then that's an attraction to a male anyway. He may not be a man, but males kind of sort of pick that up. And so there's certain ways that definitely, I think all young girls need to have martial arts. That's just me. Some form of self-defense training early on. But in terms of their demeanor, their manners, their dress code, and all of that, they're still a child's place when they're children. And I think we should still be mindful of how we share that with them and how we implement that without letting them feel like they haven't, they aren't cool, or they don't have on the latest whatever you can afford.
Right. But not only that, as parents, we have to be real with our children. And we're not telling them why it is that they should do it.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? And the difference in now and then is the parents are trying to be friends with the children.
Exactly.
I have a few comrades and friends whose daughters I don't even feel comfortable standing next to. And not because of anything I would do,
Right.
it's just because of the fact that I just don't understand. It's like, why do you have this on? You understand what I'm saying? First of all, I shouldn't see any woman's cleavage. And I doggone sure shouldn't see no child. You understand what I'm saying? We have to, we are allowing our children to grow too fast.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's-
Why are you making your daughter attractive?
That's it.
8 years old, you should have things to make her
There's
attractive.
nothing to be
It's
attracted.
okay to be cute,
Right.
attractive.
With adult attractiveness.
Right, but with the clothes, I don't care what kind of clothes they make. You need to get with somebody that makes some other clothes.
Exactly.
Women aren't teaching the children, the girls how to be girls, and men aren't teaching the boys how to be. We have to skip the friendship. You know what I mean? And we got to show them what the values are. We got to say, okay, boom. See this guy right here? I went to school with him. He's the coolest cat in class. Now he's a crackhead. You have to show them graphically what reality is. Part of the thing that makes it easy for sex traffickers is that the children don't feel love at home. And we think that buying them is going to bring about love. We think that giving them everything they want is a product of love. That's not love. So the sex traffickers, they're listening to them because they see a commodity. They see a product. I was watching a video recently, and one of the girls was talking about sometimes she had to have intercourse with 40 different men in a day. How is that possible? Where are we? Not even her parents. Where are we that we allow that to happen? We have to sometimes, we got to get to a point that we rolling up on cats. We can tell somebody who's with a little girl that doesn't clearly has nothing to do with us. You got, hey, is this your father? You know what I'm saying? But we've become punks. Men and women. I'm sorry.
There is a big focus on young girls, young girls, but also as a mother of 3, almost 4 boys, I keep in mind that boys are affected by this too. And I learned about my niece's cousin while I was home back last month. He is I think he was 16, he's now 17. But he was seduced by a grown woman online who was 24. She got him, he was supposed to go to school. His parents thought he was at school. She sent him a bus ticket. He took a bus ticket took a bus from North Carolina to, I forget which state it was, but somewhere in the Midwest. And he went to be with this woman. They now have a baby. He doesn't have the type of parents that will be like, no, that's not how this works. I'm going to go get my child. They have issues already, but he's there living with this grown woman. He's 17. They have a baby. She's a grown woman. So I'm thinking about my boys. If a grown woman seduces my child, you're just as bad as a man who seduces a woman. I don't see any difference between that. So it absolutely happens to young boys because they have access to the internet, because their parents don't monitor what they're doing.
And because we give boys an attitude.
Right.
A lot of fathers would tell their sons, if he he's 17 and he's messing with a grown woman. Hey, that's my man. You know, it's really
Right,
strange.
passive.
Brain is not developed, he's still a child. That's what I'm thinking. Like, you're a grown woman and you seduce a child.
What about all those teachers that I
Oh,
see a
no.
video of a
Have
lot of
children
female
now,
teachers,
like-
women, going to jail for, you know, messing with
Underage.
boys. And it's becoming more rampant, like it's okay to do that.
Well, that's why it's becoming rampant, because they think it's okay.
Exactly.
One thing we can't do too is we can't sloganize the danger to our children. We give them these simple slogans, and that's our laziness. But we aren't trained, so we really don't have the tools to give them anything. So we tell them this lie. We say, "Don't talk to strangers." But they're walking down the street, and somebody says, "Hello, how are you?" And your child doesn't speak. You better speak. That's rude. They're confused. You say, "Don't speak to strangers." So do I speak to strangers or not? You're confusing them. I always tell students, you don't talk to strangers, your parents, except those your parents tell you is okay to talk to. And that's how you need to approach them. Now you're not lying. You only speak to the people I tell you to speak to. So if you say, "Don't talk to the police," don't talk to the police. Right? Don't have them say, you don't talk to strangers, but when they're acting bad, see that police officer over there? Keep on acting bad. I'm gonna call that police officer over there. They're gonna get you. I've seen people do that, and I've said something to people when they do it. You don't ever threaten your child with the police. What is that exactly? What is it? You don't threaten it. My sister was on the bus said that to a child. I said, "Sister, don't ever threaten your son and make him shell shock about the police. Mind your own effing business. This is my business. You and him are my business. Because you my people, I love you. And so I'm telling you, sister, don't do that to me." So we can't sloganize that. Stop that, don't talk to strangers. You have to give that to your children in a way so children understand where you qualify that. Only speak to those that I tell you it's okay to speak to. If I'm not in your presence, these are the ones you speak to, these are the ones you do not.
We have to be very careful with who we allow around our children. We have to know the people that we deal with. They have to be a bond just closer than we just family, we just blood, or we just a friendly family. You understand what I'm saying? We have to safeguard our children. We have to safeguard our children. We got to teach our children that they can't be afraid to tell us anything. You're taught to keep things inside. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that, you're afraid of what somebody might think. And part of the reason we are so damaged as a people is that we keep so much inside, and that we feel that we have to handle everything on our own. It doesn't take away anything for you to be strong. To me, the strongest thing you do is stand up and say, "Look, this is my story." You understand what I'm saying? We have to be around people that we know and that we trust, more than just saying, "This is my friend," or "This is my home." You have to be around people that have a vested interest in you and yours.
That goes back to organization.
Right.
Because you got to be around people, groups of people that you can turn your back and nobody's going to touch your child.
You can trust as many people as you want. You can have those people in your life, that you trust and all that with your children. But I think it's more so establishing what type of behavior your child should exhibit around people. People should expect you. I'm not going to suggest that my little girl ever go and sit on a grown man's lap. That's not her father. That type of behavior, I think, should be universal. It's just universal. This is just what you don't do. And please don't put my daughter on your lap. It's a grown. You gotta teach them that type of etiquette. It doesn't matter who you know or how well you think you know them. People hide them things deep down. They hide them things deep down, and you just have no idea. So if you establish something, I think a lot of parents also are scared to have real conversations about these sort of things. I mean, graphic with their children. But what you have to understand is that they're going to schools where they're around children that have been exposed to so much that you want to be their first voice. You want to be the voice that they hear first, because they're going to hear so many other voices. And sometimes they might go with that other voice, but they'll always have that foundation that you put forth in them. But if you let someone else if you let these kids teach your child, if they learn about sex from their friends, they're gonna trust their friend's word over yours. Anytime. It definitely happens.
There's so many things I can say. I most recently resigned from working for a safe house for survivors of domestic sex trafficking. So there are different resources here in Atlanta, but I try to remember also this mother here, she was talking about clarity of mind, and it made me think about how we were talking about how our young ladies look like grown women now. And so not only is our responsibility to have clarity of mind, but also think about the foods that we eat, because the foods, have certain hormones and steroids in them, which are also pumping up our young ladies too. And that's one thing that's important. We talk about a lot of times men think about pimps as men, but they're not all women as well who are trafficking people. Kind of mentioned that. And from the experience that I've had, we talk about knowing the parents and who's around our children, but I've also heard stories talking to women where their parents have trafficked them as well. So I think it's really important. We mentioned about being in community with one another, even if you don't have children. I don't have children, but one thing in particular I usually do when I see young children or people my age or older, if I'm walking down the street and I see them with something like their head down, I tell them to pick up their heads, because as you mentioned earlier, a lot of times people that are focused and pinpointed are people who have low self-esteem or don't feel loved. So it's kind of like when you think about bars. Sometimes men in the bars will target the women who seem to be most intoxicated, right? Because they're more susceptible in their minds. So the same with young ladies, children, women, and males as well. That was one thing. And then as you also mentioned, the trauma. A lot of the trauma ends up being cyclical and just runs through the family. And a lot of times when a person is traumatized, especially at a young age, their development psychologically halts. So you have children who grow into adults who don't have certain levels of reasoning, and then they end up more susceptible to these situations as well. So just things.
It's about the intoxication, like Sister said. A lot of people lure kids or get them caught up in it by getting them addicted to drugs. A lot of the girls who are going and soliciting other girls, they don't have a consciousness about it because they're high. They're high, and these people have given them an opportunity to rely on drugs and get drugs free. And so now they don't even have the wherewithal to resist the person who is holding them. About prevention methods and being very honest with your children. One thing I always gave my mother credit for, I have two brothers, and none of us had children young, none of us had young, like a lot of our cousins had very high school pregnancies, none of us had young pregnancies or got girls pregnant young, whatever. And I really credit that to my mom, who was a biology teacher, teaching us about sex education very, very young. Like, I was probably 6 and they were probably 5 when she taught us graphically what she had an anatomy book that was a pop-up book, pop-up anatomy book and baby gestation book, and taught us the graphics of sexual intercourse and how babies are made. And a lot of parents, like you said, teaching your children based off sayings, just say, oh, the parents get together and they make a baby. And that's how babies are made, and that's what sex is. When the father puts his penis in the mom's vagina, the girls don't even know what the vagina is. The insertion area of the vagina, boys don't know what it is either. So it's like, they're like, oh, is it like a hot dog in a bun? You know, they don't know even what's going on, so then they start experimenting with each other, trying to figure out what you're talking about, and then you wonder why they haven't babies or whatever. And like that's so important that your child does not learn from their friends, because they're going to learn the pleasure principle of it. And you do not want your child growing up thinking of, oh, the pleasure of sex. It has to be a collective thing that everybody knows. Everybody has that knowledge, and they have it from a scientific perspective, not just how it makes you feel and your feelings inside. Because a lot of times we associate sex with love. And so then they want to feel love and they think sex is love. But it's so much more than that. And we leave out the scientific, the actual anatomical aspect of it, and I think we do a disservice to our children by doing that, because then other people pique their curiosity and they run with it instead of knowing what's really real.
Yes, what is essential to keep it like a temple? Blast, alter the temple, keeping the beat simple and fresh. While
you see that anybody could be this person, and a lot of these people molesting people are their parents, or their parents' siblings, or their parents' second husbands, or wives and aunts, and there's no look to a child molester at all.
Some of these questions we have to ask the children, and I want to ask real quick. For you, how old are you? What's your name, bro?
Solomon.
Solomon. Okay, Solomon. What does a murderer look? A murderer. Look any way. Does he look like a murderer? What about him? Well, I know he does. Do I look like a murderer? Do I look like a killer? Okay. What about him? You said they could look like anybody. So what do you mean? So you got to get to the bottom of it, because he heard what you said. But when you get to the bottom of it, most of our children think, and he's 13, so the young ones think the same way. He looks scary. Anybody could be a killer. Anybody could be a murderer. In fact, it would be easier to get next to you if I look nice, right? If I look scary, you're going to run away, right? So it can look like anybody. That's how we have to talk with our children. We've got to be honest about it, that we're giving them slogans, and so they really aren't learning what's really dangerous out there and how to really look at things honestly themselves. But we haven't been honest with them. Probably not because we want to lie out there, but because we are ignorant of the stuff ourselves. What was funny, I did that with children, then I turned around, the adults were out in the room, brought them in. I asked them the same question. What does a rapist look like? Sweaty, he's got thick glasses on. Now mind you, when these are my regular guys are thick. Thick glasses, sweaty, I've been training so I'm sweating. I said, wow, y'all describing me. And they, oh, I'm sorry, you don't look like that, man. Oh, so he doesn't look like that, man. But could he look like that? They don't want to say yeah. Of course he could. Of course he could look like me. Of course he could be nice. Niceness isn't a character trait. Niceness is a strategy of social interaction. So if I want to get close to you, I can act nice. It's not my character.
A therapist told me charming is a strategy of manipulation.
And charming is a verb. We look at it as a noun, as a trait. It's a verb. He's charming me. That's how you should say that. Or I'm being charmed, not that he is a charming fellow. Right? Niceness does not equal goodness. Goodness is a trait. Niceness is a strategy.
I'm finding it a little bit more difficult for my children in a community setting to be able to direct them on who to trust and who not to, because I find with our community, it's no longer Mr. or Mrs. Baba and Mama, and that brings a little bit more connection, and then more of an immediate connection than Mrs. So-and-so, which is intentional, but it's also dangerous, because that, even with their teachers, it's more of a community of people we know, but I really don't know the teacher all the way, you know, but this is Baba so-and-so or Mama so-and-so, and so I'm trying to see how, without, you know, making them fearful of their community, how I could really tell them, you know, address that.
Very important, because, right, the beautiful thing about, we have an organization, right? With the organization, within the organization, you have cadres. So when you talk about the community, most people, Baba, Yabba Dabba Doo, and Eel, Baba Wabba, you know what I'm saying? They'll ignore the community needs. A lot of times you have cultural nationalists put on the guard and kick the slogans, say a few slick lines or whatever, pour libations, that's all you expect. No accountability, no responsibility, nothing. You haven't been in their homes, any of that stuff, right? So you can't really necessarily trust what you don't know. You've never been in these people's homes and they're just someone in the community. So then you have what you call an inner circle, you have a cadre. Everybody can be part of the organization. Everybody get down there, GP, it's all good, Black Power, all of this stuff. Everybody's not going to do the thing, just the fact that everybody's not going to put it to work necessary for us to maintain what we're doing. So what you have to do, you have to figure out who are your true allies. Who are your comrades? There's a difference between a comrade and a friend. Just because somebody names Baba and they got on the boomer, don't mean nothing. You understand what I'm saying? You got to say, okay, this is who you, and you tell them out the gate. Like you talking about being honest. This is your uncle such and such. This is this one. This is that one. So on and so forth. The people that you see in your home, these are the people that we rock with. You understand what I'm saying? We have a saying: you dance with those who came to the party. You understand what I'm saying? You don't dance with everybody. I'm a part of the same conscious community that you are, and I don't rock with 96% of those cats. A lot of them are nuts. Now they look good and they sound good and it's great. But in the real world, they're not going to bust a break the sledgehammer. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to know the people that you invite into your home. We don't invite everybody into our home. Your home should be a place of safety. If they see that these ain't people that come into the home, everybody else, they cordial. And they respect them accordingly. They're not going nowhere. They're not taking no instructions to go get nothing from them. Every time they, just like you deal with the police, and not in a black man. You're like, listen. My Bible said don't move. Mama said stay over here, so so forth. So there ain't nothing moving. Can't nobody get mad at me because then when they come to you and say, man, your child wasn't listening to me. What happened? I told him to go move over there. He said, my mother said stay right there. Okay, well that's what I told him. You understand what I'm saying? That's how we got to operate. You can't, the community can't embrace your child because they say they're community. Anybody can throw on a black fist and speak the lingo.
One way you want to vet people, if you're so uptight, you can't laugh, you can't be around me and mine. Because there's an issue, there's something you're hiding there. There's something that you're so uptight because you're holding something close. And it's something not positive. So you can't be around mine.
Then you can try to, go with your gut, and, because I sense things about people sometimes, and I've learned over the years that sometimes I sense it's on point, so you gotta kind of listen to your inner thing, but then that's maybe not enough. And then you can set certain rules, like, oh, no overnight, but then, you don't want to deprive your children of having fun, so it really can be complicated, but we have to really, really protect our children with the internet and YouTube and pornography, because that's huge. A lot of kids, they may be just looking at some innocent little videos, and then they got the suggested stuff on the side, and they go, just like when we're on YouTube and we're looking at these conscious videos with, these so-called scholars, and we go down these YouTube rabbit holes, and they say, we're like, oh, we're all in this, And they've got these suggested videos on the side, and they get caught up going down rabbit holes. I've talked to several moms, and you have to watch your kids' history. You have to watch what they're looking at, and you have to protect them. You got to get filters on your computer, because it's very easy for a child to get caught up in pornography, without even looking for it. Some kids, they're boys and teenagers, they go out and they look for it. But a lot of kids, they're not even looking for it, and it comes to them, and it's dangerous. And once you see certain things, you cannot see it. And it really can. When I was little, I discovered somebody's treasure trove of pornography, and it's traumatizing. I was traumatized for years, and there was things, you can't unsee as a child. So, protect your children on the internet, especially with the people that they communicate with the things that they see, because it's like letting them go out into the, onto the street and just saying, oh, go, hang out, have fun, because the internet it's all connected. There's no blocks and no safety.
I took a child sex abuse prevention course with a nonprofit organization here called Darkness to Light, and got certified in child sex abuse prevention. Anybody can get certified in it. I think it might be $20. I I mean, I recommend it to anybody, especially anybody who's on childcare, anybody who has children, young children especially.
Can you repeat
Because
that?
Darkness to Light, you can find a lot of resources on their website, a lot of factual statements mentioned on their website.
Pairs is dying and my people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Watch what comes out your mouth. People are suffering.
It's elementary, they want us all gone eventually.
Pairs is dying, people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budget.